Tonight, clashes in Canada's response to Donald Trump's tariff threat. The deepening public divide a week before the inauguration.
I won't hesitate to pull out every single tool we have until they can feel the pain.
If we take energy out of the picture in making the argument, the Americans have a trade surplus with us.
And the details behind a critical face-to-face at Mar-a-Lago. The new warnings in California's catastrophic firefight, the dangerous hours ahead.
We're just praying and hoping that doesn't happen, but we're very scared.
As Canadians bolster their presence. And a fresh look at the crushing financial hit here in Canada from natural disasters. Plus, the new Lowe's robbers are resorting to get their hands on some fast cash. And what's brewing behind a dry January boom.
I think this is going to be a big change in the industry.
The growing drinking trend generating a different buzz.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening. Just 1 week before Donald Trump's inauguration, more cracks are emerging tonight in Team Canada's approach to dealing with the incoming president's tariff threat. Alberta's premier, who was at Mar-a-Lago over the weekend and spoke to Trump, is against Ottawa's suggestion of cutting off energy exports to the United States, while the premier of Ontario insists it should be an option, but it comes at a cost. CTV's senior political correspondent Michael Couture on the stakes.
America needs it. Canada has it.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford believes critical minerals are essential to a strong partnership with the U.S. It's why he's talking about accelerating resource development for both countries.
China's cutting, America off on the critical minerals. They're trying to corner the market. Who has more critical minerals than anyone right now in North America? It's Ontario.
A week ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration, most premiers are pitching a partnership with the U.S. However, with that threat of 25% tariffs on all Canadian goods still looming, Premier Ford isn't ruling out a strong response.
If they're coming full tilt at us, I won't hesitate to pull out every single tool we have until they can feel the pain. But that's the last thing I want to do.
Alberta's Danielle Smith doesn't want energy exports caught up in this trade war, a point she made during a trip to Mar-a-Lago last weekend. The premier says she wasn't lobbying to exempt oil and gas exports from those tariffs, but it is part of a key equation.
If we take energy out of the picture in making the argument, the Americans have a trade surplus with us.
Former Prime Minister Stephen Harper underlined that surplus on a U.S.-based podcast. And Harper suggested Canada should perhaps look at selling our oil and gas to other countries if Trump continues on a path towards tariffs.
Doesn't sound to me like the pronouncements of somebody who's a friend, a partner, and an ally, which is what I've always thought the United States is for our country.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says Trump is a bully, and he believes we should respond with force.
There's no quicker way to get Donald Trump to back away from tariffs than to shut off the tap on critical minerals, what the states need very clearly.
Premiers have been hesitant to cut off those types of exports because of how crucial they are to provincial economies. But that could be part of the discussion when they meet with the Prime Minister in Ottawa on Wednesday. Omar.
All right, Mike, thank you. Candidates who want to replace the Prime Minister have 10 more days to declare they want to run for the Liberal leadership. CTV's Judy Trin with a roundup of who's in the race and one person who is trying to do what no one else has done before.
Mi'kmaq MP Jaime Batiste wants to make history as the first Indigenous candidate to run for Prime Minister.
You have to have that first person willing to put their hand up and try, even if the odds are stacked against them. It's important to take those first steps.
Batiste says he'll be making calls from morning to midnight. His biggest test will be raising the $350,000 entry fee. It's 4 times what it was previously.
One of the responsibilities of a Prime Minister, of a leader of a party, is to raise money.
Expect the top contenders: former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney and former Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland to declare this week before Donald Trump takes office. But former BC Premier Christy Clark has hit a speed bump. After denying she was a member of the Conservative Party, electronic records revealed she signed up to be a Tory in June 2022 and was one for 1 year. Clark says she misspoke and clarified that she did it to support Jean Charest and stop Pierre Poilievre. She's expected to stay in the running and has a 250-person campaign team in place.
There is a new sense of energy. They are looking forward to see the kind of people coming forward.
Other than the top three, Ottawa MP Chandra Arya and Quebec businessman Frank Baylis have also declared they're running. Several high-profile cabinet ministers have already bowed out of the race, but 3 others are still considering. Among them, Industry Minister François-Philippe Champagne, House Leader Karina Gold, and Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson. The race will also be scrutinized by a national security task force that monitors elections for foreign interference.
The Liberal Party has certainly a chance, certainly in the context of this leadership race, to kind of create a pathway that can be adopted by other political parties.
The clock is ticking. Candidates only have 2 weeks to sign up new party members and a little over 50 days to win over the votes of Liberals. Omar.
Judy, thanks. There are new signs tonight that a ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas is in sight.
We're on the brink of a proposal that I laid out in detail months ago, finally coming to fruition.
U.S. officials say there's a possibility the deal could be signed as early as this week. It would include Hamas releasing the hostages. In exchange, Israel would end major combat operations in Gaza, which have killed nearly 47,000 Palestinians, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Though research recently published in the prestigious medical journal The Lancet suggests the toll could be significantly higher. The Hamas attack on October 7th, 2023, killed 1,200 Israelis. Police in Markham, Ontario are investigating after a Jewish business was vandalized with anti-Semitic graffiti. They say the suspects broke into a kosher foods caterer where they were caught on camera wearing masks and spray painting hate speech. The latest incident follows a surge in hate crimes in the city. To a rare look now at the war in Ukraine.
Ви хочете повернутися назад в Північну Корею?
Ukraine says this video shows its soldiers questioning the first North Korean soldiers it has captured while fighting for Russia. One saying he thought he was going to Russia for training, not war. Ukraine's president has made an offer to North Korea's leader to hand the soldiers over for Ukrainian prisoners in Russia. U.S. officials say at least 10,000 North Koreans have been deployed to Russia to join the war. To the battle against nature in California. Firefighters in Los Angeles are preparing for critical hours ahead tonight as winds that spread the wildfires so quickly in the first place are forecast to whip up again. Although there has been progress, the fires are far from being contained. Already, 24 people have died. CTV's Andrew Johnson on how crews are preparing for their next urgent mission.
More than 10,000 firefighters in the air and on the ground are working to protect homes and save lives in Los Angeles County. On their minds Monday, the wind.
We are not in the clear as of yet.
The entire region needs to be prepared to evacuate.
The Santa Ana winds are forecast to return to dangerous levels overnight through Wednesday.
The National Weather Service is predicting close to hurricane force level winds.
Go, go, go. Exhausted crews will once again face an extreme fire risk. New reinforcements are on the way from Canada.
In 2023, California firefighters bravely supported Alberta in a time of great need. And now Alberta is answering the call and stepping up to support our friends.
2 fully equipped wildfire crews, including 40 firefighters, are traveling from Edmonton. 24 more are landing in LA from British Columbia, joining an incident command team that left Saturday.
What our goal here is to keep in close contact with the officials on the ground, anticipate what their actual needs are, get them ready, so when the request comes in for any additional resources, they can respond immediately.
A key piece of Canadian firefighting equipment will also be back in action when it's needed most. The Quebec-based Super Scooper, grounded after colliding with a drone, has been repaired. The planes, assembled in Calgary using parts produced near Victoria, BC, are in high demand around the world.
It is the only scooping aircraft in its class. It scoops 6,000 liters in 12 seconds.
you can be on the fire and then back at your water source in a matter of 10 minutes.
A valuable tool in fighting historic flames and preventing further loss.
Looks like a nuclear bomb went off there. It's just flattened.
As Southern California now braces for what could be another devastating week. Andrew Johnson, CTV News.
There is a new look at the financial toll of extreme weather here at home tonight. The Insurance Bureau of Canada says last year's disastrous weather pushed the tally to more than $8 billion for the first time ever. The Calgary hailstorm last August topped the list at $3 billion in damage to homes and cars. The Jasper wildfires left over $1 billion in destruction. The issue in Quebec, flood damage, where the remnants of Hurricane Debbie created $2.7 billion in damage. And 2 rounds of flooding last summer in the Toronto area totaled more than $1 billion. And a new consumer debt report shows half of Canadians are just $200 or less from not paying their bills. The survey conducted by Ipsos found fewer Canadians expect their debt situation to improve in the coming year, and a growing number believe it will worsen. More than half say they don't think they'll be able to cover all of their living and family expenses in the new year without accruing more debt. Police across the country are dealing with an uptick in ATM break-ins, and thieves are getting creative. CTV's Garrett Barry on the extraordinary tools criminals are resorting to and why some in Newfoundland are being dubbed backhoe bandits.
A building side torn off, the shell of an ATM mangled on the ground, and cleanup crews on site. It appears to be another case of what locals have started to call the backhoe bandits.
We have seen these types of events in the community in the past year where heavy equipment has been used to damage property and look to access, in most cases, an ATM.
This type of crime happens more often than you'd expect around here. In fact, just in September, barely a few hundred meters down the road, another bank was hit using heavy machinery.
And this past month, 3 times thieves have used a backhoe or another piece of heavy machinery to destroy the side of a building, sometimes taking an ATM out of the building and into a truck, transporting it somewhere where thieves will have more time to try to break into the machine.
In the past, we have made arrests and identified potential suspects, and we continue to progress our investigation on this event overnight.
Part of what makes this all possible, according to the mayor of the city of Mount Pearl, is the proliferation of universal keys. Many different older pieces of heavy equipment can be unlocked and started with a single key. He says this type of theft has become too big of a problem, inspiring too many copycats, and is calling for a coordinated response from city councils and the provincial government. Police say equipment owners should consider taking steps to secure their vehicles.
Whether it be securing the cabs, putting locking mechanisms, decreasing access, even alarm systems, audible alarms.
In Toronto on New Year's Eve, this very similar crime, an excavator breaking into a TD bank and making off with an ATM. In Mount Pearl, police are investigating, including asking anyone who may have seen heavy machinery traveling on the streets late at night to come forward and speak with investigators. Garrett Barry, CTV News, Mount Pearl, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Coming up.
This, my friends, is what septic shock does to you.
A teen takes to social media about the infection that changed her life forever. A tragedy southwest of Toronto where a 9-year-old boy is dead after a pickup truck rolled over.
The roads and weather were dry and clear at the time. Obviously, we're looking at human factors, whether or not impairment fatigue played a factor. That's certainly part of the ongoing investigation.
The crash happened on a highway in Oakville, Ontario early this morning. Police say the truck hit the ditch and rolled, and that the boy was ejected. Police are looking at whether seat belts were used properly. The driver was taken to hospital with serious injuries, and police say no charges have been laid. An Ontario teen using the power of social media to make a name for herself and the condition that changed her life and affects an estimated 75,000 Canadians. It's called sepsis. Here's CTV's medical correspondent Avis Favreau with her inspiring story.
I get a lot of questions.
A lot of teens like being on social media, but for 19-year-old Amelie Henze, it's part of a mission. She has no hands and no feet, a quad amputee the result of sepsis.
I had no clue that sepsis was a thing before any of this happened to me.
Amelie has Crohn's, a bowel disorder that left her underweight. But last October, she felt unusually ill and went to the ER. She waited 18 hours to be admitted. Only then, doctors found her hands and feet had turned black.
Oh, this is septic shock, which means she's been septic. It's been missed. Like, it's too late. What do you do? And it was really scary.
Sepsis is an extreme response to infection. The body starts to attack its own tissues and organs. In her case, a tear in her bowel had been missed. To save her life, she was put in a 3-week coma, after which her hands and feet were amputated. That's exactly what happened to UK politician Craig McKinley, who dramatically illustrated the effects of sepsis and his return to Parliament. Amelie launched her story on TikTok.
This, my friends, is what septic shock does to you.
An unvarnished look at how she puts on her artificial legs, how she uses her iPhone.
The bones are very prominent, and I kind of use those almost as my fingers.
I feel like talking about it it makes me feel like there's a reason that all this happened to me, and it's kind of turning a tragedy into something more beautiful.
Every day, over 200 Canadians develop sepsis, triggered by common infections like the flu. And if it isn't detected and treated quickly, up to a third can die. Sepsis researchers say people need to be aware of the early symptoms.
Uncontrolled shivering, feeling as horrible as you can, confusion, not making urine.
Amelie, meanwhile, isn't letting much stop her.
Goodbye.
She's fundraising for prosthetic hands while she becomes the face of Advocacy.
I don't want other people to have to go through what I went through.
Avis Favreau, CTV News, Brantford, Ontario.
So incredibly brave. Still ahead, how an unexpected endorsement turned a book into a bestseller. The Oscar nominations, which have been delayed because of the LA wildfires, will now be announced next Thursday, January 23rd. The Oscars is also canceling its nominees luncheon, but the show will go ahead as planned on March 2nd. Meanwhile, the 2025 Grammys will go on as scheduled a month earlier, February 2nd, with what organizers are calling a renewed sense of purpose. They plan to raise money for relief efforts and honor first responders. The Duchess of Sussex is delaying the debut of her new Netflix show to focus on the wildfire devastation in her hometown of LA.
I've always loved taking something pretty ordinary and elevating it.
With Love, Megan is described as a heartfelt tribute to the beauty of Southern California and was set to start streaming Wednesday. That's now been pushed to early March. In a statement, she says she's focused on the needs of those impacted by the wildfires. Meghan and Prince Harry met with first responders in Pasadena on Friday. A winter wonderland of majestic ice castles is up and running in New Hampshire. The annual event has become a major tourist attraction and has now opened its doors. It features 25 million pounds of ice carved into towers, tunnels, and other cold creations. Frosty weather in the area allowed the installation to open earlier this year. And a self-help book, first published more than 15 years ago, has become an overnight bestseller on Amazon after some unexpected publicity in the middle of an NFL game. Cameras caught Philadelphia Eagles star receiver A.J. Brown reading on the sidelines during a playoff game against the Green Bay Packers, later picking up the book Inner Excellence by author Jim Murphy.
You know, that's the first time I heard that y'all got me on camera. But it's not the first game. You know, regardless of if I score a touchdown or I drop a pass, I always go back to that book every time.
Brown posted a picture of his well-worn copy of the book after the game, and it may just have helped because the Eagles won. And if you still rely on Canada Post to send letters, it's going to cost you more as of today. If you buy a booklet, a stamp will cost you $1.24. That's up 25 cents. A single domestic stamp is now $1.44. The price hike was announced back in September before the lengthy postal strike. Canada Post expects it will bring in an extra $80 million this year, well shy of the more than $3 billion in losses reported since 2018. Sales at Starbucks have also tumbled, which could be the reason they're sending a new message to customers. If you want to sit around at the coffee shop or use the washroom, you'll have to buy something. The policy reverses an earlier one that invited everyone and will be posted in all North American stores. Starbucks is also banning panhandling. The company says anyone that violates the new code of conduct will be asked to leave, or stores could call law enforcement. Still ahead, the growing trend that could push you to extend dry January. If you've kept up your New Year's resolution of going dry this January, well done. After consuming holiday cheer, many choose to abstain from alcohol in the first month of the year. But there's a growing trend showing that many are giving it up altogether. Here's Allison Bamford.
The dry January trend isn't the only reason alcohol-free drinks are flowing.
If they're not drinking, they still want a handcrafted drink and not just something simple.
This Saskatoon restaurant noticed a shift last spring. Now 90% of their drink menu can be substituted for low or no alcohol versions.
They want to make better choices around what they're drinking, what they're eating, and alcohol isn't exactly their go-to anymore.
Booze-free beverages are surging in popularity across the country.
I call it a movement.
The owner of Hamilton-based Free Bar, an online store that specializes in non-alcoholic beverages, says demand for their products shot up over the last year, with many customers taking part in what's called zebra stripe drinking.
They're actually choosing to drink an alcoholic drink and a non-alcoholic drink throughout the evening.
A 2024 report suggests 75% of those who drink non-alcoholic beverages also drink alcohol products, and it's younger and middle-aged consumers with a strong focus on health and wellness buying alcohol-free drinks the most.
I'm seeing a lot more winemakers who make, quote, regular or traditional wines, introducing low alcohol options and no alcohol. Adding this to their portfolio is just a recognition of those trends, and particularly in that young cohort of Gen Z.
I think this is going to be a big change in the industry.
A change toward what's called mindful consumption that many think will last longer than your New Year's resolution. Allison Bamford, CTV News, Saskatoon.
And that's a snapshot of this Monday for all of us at CTV National News. Thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.